My name is Richard C. Pendry. For those that know me, hello again. For those that don't know me, delighted to meet you. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm the owner of Pendry Risk Management, a company that provides organisation resilience solutions in the form of risk, crisis, business continuity management, and of course, terrorism awareness. Our objective at Pendry Risk Management is to give our clients the knowledge so that they can operate safely in challenging environments. And I think that we can all agree that at the moment we're going through some challenging times. So my overall objective this evening is to introduce my new online, on-demand counter-terrorism course, showing its relevance during this period as we head out of lockdown. I'm going to discuss why there is a real need for those responsible for providing security have a better understanding of the threat of terrorism at this present time. I'm then going to talk about the course, highlighting its unique properties while focusing on the problems that the course can solve for you, and how we can allow those who are responsible for the security of your business, location, or organization to develop a robust response to a critical incident, event like a terror attack, should it occur. Now, put the first slide on there, Luke. I'm sure that most, if not all of you, are aware of and have actually taken part in the ACT e-learning course provided by NACTO. I want to congratulate NACTO and the learning provider, Highfields, on doing an excellent job of raising the awareness of counter-terrorism amongst the general public. I want to stress that my course is not in opposition to ACT. It is not an alternative product. If anything, it's exactly the opposite. It is in addition, it is the next layer. It came about because of an inquiry from a client of mine, an event company in London. They had done the ACT course, but wanted to learn more. They wanted for me to come up with tangible processes and procedures that they could utilize to ensure that they were capable of providing an effective response to a terror attack. Something that they thought that they were unable to do even after taking the ACT course. And that's understandable, I suppose, because ACT is a starting point. For want of a better phrase, it's a one-size-fits-all. I didn't want to confuse my client, so I utilized the existing lexicon used by NACTO and CPNI. It's never been my intention to reinvent the wheel. Such an approach would only complicate matters. So what I did was to look at the problem through the eyes of security risk management and use my empirical and academic knowledge of keeping people safe since 2005 in some of the most dangerous places on the planet to flesh out the bones. I touched on my background there, so I think this would be a good time for me to explain what my experience is and what I've done that has allowed me to develop a course on such an important yet sensitive theme. After all, let's face it, there are a lot of terrorism experts out there, most of which have never seen a terrorist. I sort of fell into the security industry. It wasn't my intention to actually join it. I was ex-military, but I wasn't a career soldier. I got out of the military in the 80s. I did between 1980 and 1987. And I went into business. I had a number of businesses in my hometown in South Wales. And in 2005, I sold the last business that I owned. And I had a phone call from an old comrade of mine asking me if I wanted to go to Iraq. Big decision. So I was intrigued. It was good money, good pay, good conditions. But before I could commit, I had to go and ask the boss I had to go and ask the wife. My wife thought that I was having a midlife crisis. And she said to me, yeah, fine, off you go. You've got 6 months, get it out of your system, and then we can pick up and carry on. Put the slide on there, Luke. So I went to Iraq in 2005 to work for a private security company. That's me on the left, talking to some Bedouin people. My position, my location was down in the south of Iraq, in Basra. And I alternated between Basra and the capital of Baghdad. I was involved in the biggest standalone security contract that was awarded during the Iraq reconstruction phase. And our job was to ensure the safety and security of various US military personnel through the Army Corps of Engineers. I absolutely loved my new job. It was great. It was well paid. We had great conditions, extremely interesting. It gave me the camaraderie that I'd missed during the military. The only downside was that it was very dangerous. But I was intrigued. I was hooked on it, but I wanted to actually bring something more to the table. I wanted to get involved in it a lot more. So that's when I started to do my first degree. And I went online. I did it by distance learning, and I did security and risk management from the University of Leicester. I was rewarded for that because I then became the regional security manager for my company in southern Iraq. And I had 150 international and various other staff, several locations, dozens of vehicles, and millions of dollars of budget. So I achieved my aim there. Ironic, really, Luke put that up. There's one, the irony with this was that one of our projects was a location called Camp Buka. Camp Buka was a prison, and still is a prison, that was built on the Kuwaiti-Iraq border, not far from the Iraqi port of Qasr. And Camp Buka, we facilitated the security for the engineers to go in and build this camp. And Camp Buka was used as a prison to actually house the inmates of the infamous Abu Ghraib and various other prisons around Iraq. So one of the inmates that was there and held there was al-Baghdadi. Al-Baghdadi was the first leader of Islamic State. And it is widely recognized that the Camp Buka was the incubator that was used by Islamic State to spread its radicalization amongst the inmates. So I suppose indirectly, I'm part of the cause of Islamic State. Just a joke, that one. I really enjoyed my time in Iraq. One of my first bosses told me, he said, "Richard, you need to be a life tourist." And I've sort of held that sort of belief all the way through. So every opportunity that I had, I tried to get out and talk to the locals. And on one of the missions, I came across a tribe, a village full of Marsh Arabs. And that was the catalyst, that was the seed that became my first novel. I'm sorry for using this opportunity to plug the book, but as writers, we need to have every opportunity we can to advertise our books. This was released in 2016. It's a story. It's a parallel story that runs from Iraq in 2011 to at the time of the third crusade in 1191. It's a parallel story, and it's been likened to Andy McNab's Bravo 20 meets Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. There's a strapline at the top there of a gentleman called Peter Moore. Peter Moore was held as a hostage. He was kidnapped in Iraq for 946 days. And Peter loved it. So if you're interested in action adventure book, then there's that. So that's the plug. I do apologize. I'd spent over 2 years in Iraq during a very difficult period, and I wanted to go back home and spend a little bit more time. So I took a sabbatical. And I actually went to, during that sabbatical for a little while, I actually went off to Damascus to learn Arabic, because I was very taken with the Arabic culture and the Arabic language. That was a very interesting couple of months. That was prior to the actual war that has devastated the country. And that's where the name as well, Damascus Redemption, comes from. I had full intention of going back to Iraq, to the oil fields that were just opening up. All the oil companies were going back. But I had another phone call. Another ex-military mate of mine that asked me to go out to Afghanistan and help them set up a security platform for the then coming 2009 presidential elections. As I was due to go back to Iraq, I mentioned to him, how long is this going to be for? It's only going to be for a matter of 6 weeks. Fine, no problem. So off I went to Afghanistan. And it wasn't 6 weeks I was there for. In the end, it was 6 years, 2009 to 2015. And I've been back on several occasions previously. Fascinating country. Over the several different jobs that I had, I worked in the north, south, and the east and the west. I've got a lot of empathy for the Afghan people. They're a very misunderstood and misjudged country, and yeah, very difficult for them. The biggest job that I had when I was out in Afghanistan was for the United Nations. Put that on. This was back in 2000. This was for the presidential elections of 2014, and as the UN security lead, I developed the security platform for the Afghan electoral election team for the 2014 elections. That is me with the Vice President of Afghanistan, Dr. Abdullah. Amazing job, very, very busy, huge budget, hundreds and thousands of people to actually train. But the proof of the pudding was in the eating, because the actual elections went off and there were very, very few security incidents. But the most salient job, and the most interesting job that I had in Afghanistan was when I was embedded with the United States Marine Corps during the Battle of Marja during 2010. I was working for an American organization that was subcontracted by the American government. And my role was counter-insurgency. And I had to have the Marine Corps around me not to get killed. Extremely interesting job. What my job was to actually analyze why the young men and women of Helmand province would join the Taliban and go off for a life of violence. And I had to then come up with programs that would actually stop them or stop them from living that life of violence. The most successful program that I had was a vocational school that was designed to reintegrate members of the Taliban back into society, give them jobs, give them abilities to actually carry out a different lifestyle. And to do that, I had to directly deal with the Taliban. Absolutely amazing time. I spent $2.4 million, which was quite easy to do, to be honest with you, because of the inflated economy that was there. But anyway, intrigued on why people actually were drawn to a life of violence. When I left Afghanistan, I actually signed up, before I do that, sorry, I need to bring this up on the screen there, because I was writing again in Afghanistan, and I wrote a short story called "That's Me" in one of the Marine Corps MRAPs. On the right-hand side is "The Last Patrol," a short story which I wrote about an Afghan suicide bomber. I published it, and then I gave all the rights to Semper Fi, which is one of the American Marine Corps charities, and it's on Amazon. I think it's 99 pence. All the money goes to the Marine Corps charity. So, yeah. So the first chance I had when I left helmet, and I did it after 13 months. If I was a cat, I'd used up a few of my 9 lives there. I signed up for my master's program at at St Andrews University and the Centre for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence. Now, this was the second of my degrees that I did by distance learning, and it took me actually 5 years. It's not because I was slow or anything. The quickest you could have actually done the degree was over 3 years, but most of us, because of the amount of reading that we had to do and the work that we were conducting in the daytime, did the degree over 5 years. But over that 5 years, I was drip fed this fascinating subject by some of the best minds in the actual world. And at the end of it, I came out with my master's degree, and between my master's in political violence and terrorism and the other degree in security and risk management, I've worked since 2015, both domestically and on an international basis, providing relevant information for people who want to stay safe. Let me just take a glass of water. So, let's get on to the course. Why the course and why now? April 2021 saw the launch of an initiative by the UK's Counter-Terrorism Police. The initiative was launched to coincide with the easing of lockdown measures. During lockdown, terrorism would have been far from people's mind. But the fact is that the threat of terrorism hasn't gone away. It has just become dormant because the ingredients that it needs to manifest itself has been absent. And of course, I'm talking about targets, the general public, you and I. We had glimpses of how quickly it can flare up in a park in Reading last summer that saw 3 men murdered and several wounded. There was a beheading in Paris, and another attack in Nice late last year that saw another 3 dead. Most recently, last week in France, a police officer was stabbed to death at a police station in Paris. Locked away in their houses for the last year, those that are susceptible to being influenced have become more and more radicalized. With the lifting of restrictions, it is these individuals that are primed to inflict violence on an unsuspecting general public. Although the 3 incidents I've already mentioned relate to jihadi terrorism, radicalization and the next step, the action of committing violence, is not the sole domain of Muslim extremists. Far-right extremism is on the right and has reached worrying levels in the US and the UK. Let's not forget the attack in New Zealand that left 51 dead. And although not recent, but still as important, was the attack in Norway by Anders Breivik that killed 77. But I'd also like to draw your attention to other groups. Incels, involuntary celibate young men, misogynists, members of an online subculture who define themselves as unable to find romantic or sexual partners, even though they want one. I know it sounds bizarre, it sounds surreal, but their movement is growing. One incel killed 10 people in Canada in 2018 with a weaponized vehicle attack. In January of this year, another incel was jailed in Scotland for 10 years for planning mass murder. Knife crime is also reaching epidemic levels, with a knife attack occurring in the UK every 3 to 4 minutes. It appears that the unsophisticated attacks associated with lone wolf terrorists, such as knives and vehicle attacks, has now become a way for other groups and individuals to communicate their grievances. And let's not forget that the enormous upheaval that we've taken place in our society recently. I was reading recently research looking into how individuals reintegrate back into society after periods of isolation. The study showed that some individuals became far more violent towards the social group that they were isolated from. Okay, there's insufficient evidence at present to show how this will affect us moving forward. But currently, there is a major concern about mental health and suicide. It seems that mass shootings in the US, sadly not uncommon, are becoming more and more regular. Those that want to commit murder in the UK don't have access to guns, but they do have access to knives and vehicles. We are aware of the correlation of the increase in the threat to terrorism as the lockdown lifts, but we should also be aware of a possible correlation between mental health and violence. For some, this might seem unrealistic, but as a risk manager, it's my job to look forward, look for new threats, and just because it hasn't happened before, in my mind, it is not a reason to dismiss. I mean, who would have thought that the Twin Towers in New York would have been attacked by planes? But there is also another a really good reason why our new counter-terrorism course is relevant at the present. After her son was tragically killed at the Manchester Arena, Figen Murray has campaigned tirelessly to ensure that new legislation is adopted to reduce the chance of such an event occurring again. Figen named it Martin's Law after her son. Her campaign has gained such momentum that her cry to action has been taken up by the government. Martin's Law was the seed that has become the UK Protect Duty. The bill is yet to become law, but it won't be long. It is currently at the consultation stage and should become law later this year or early next. Because of the ongoing consultation, we don't know exactly what it will contain. However, what we do know is that there will be more responsibility placed on those organizations or individuals who are responsible for public spaces. The new term, the new acronym is PAL. Publicly accessible locations. The government said the new law would bring legal requirements for PALs to ensure preparedness for and protection from terrorist attacks. Comments that I've heard already from those within the legal profession have said that it will be far-reaching with massive implications. I've actually been in contact with Figen prior to the launch in the course and was delighted when she agreed to take the course as part of the final editing and rolling out. Figen is currently reading a Master's in Counter-Terrorism, so her expert eye was of great benefit to the final polishing. I'm not sure if Figen is with us. Figen is with us this evening. Wonderful, Figen. Lovely to see you, and thank you for taking time off. I know you're really busy at the moment with the inquests. Thank you very much. We'll chat later. Before I get stuck into the course, I want to mention the Security Institute, because the course is part of their approved training program, which means that it has been reviewed by security professionals and is found fit for purpose. Those members of the Security Institute who undertake the course will receive CPD points for their time. So let's have a look at the course. My course, which is, to the best of my knowledge, is the only one like it, expands on the themes mentioned by Naxo. I've already mentioned this, but it goes into far more depth. I peel back the layers of the onion, as it were. Using the lens of risk management, I give those responsible for the application and implementation of security measures tangible tools and processes to follow that will enhance a more effective response to a terror attack or critical incident should it occur. Those of you that know me know I'm big on practical measures. I always have been and always will be. Because I've been the guy on the ground who has had to implement policies and procedures. I've had to come up with realistic solutions to keep people safe in some of the most hazardous conditions in the world. This is not like other courses where you'll be told what you need and left wondering how you do it. In my course, requirements will be explained, and then through practical exercises, you will learn how to do it. If you require further assistance, I'm also available on a consultancy basis to give you advice, to guide you through the process of design and implementation. So, the course. The course has 6 modules. What is terrorism? Security, context and threat. Vulnerability, impact and risk. Terror attack cycle part 1, target selection, planning. Terror attack cycle part 2, deployment, the attack, exploitation, and finally, counter-terrorism, the response. In the e-learning version, there is a video for each module. They range in length from between 17 and 27 minutes. Each module is confirmed by several questions that need to be completed to move on to the next module. There are also 7 exercises, but I'll come back to the exercises in a minute. To help you work through each module, there is a workbook in a PDF downloadable format. The study of the phenomenon that is terrorism is huge and diverse. It encapsulates other subjects such as criminology, sociology, psychology, just to name a few. What I have done to help you explore and read around the subject is to include links to videos and articles that are relevant to each module and that I think you might find useful. It will give you, or they will give you, a broader understanding of the subject. Throughout the course, I reference documents, some of which have been authored by NACTSO and CPNI. I do this to ensure a unified approach. Part of the course is a security plan that is available as a download. It comes as a Word document that can be then adapted to your specific business, organization, or location. Now, you need to take note of the security plan, as this is a unique feature of my course. For me, as a risk manager, the security plan is my starting point when I have to develop and implement procedures to keep people safe. That's it. It's my starting point. It is the document that facilitates the security framework. Without it, I would be lost. It would be like trying to navigate through a city that you don't know, with no navigational aids, no map, no compass. The arrival at my destination would therefore be left to chance. The security plan is there to articulate how your security risks will be managed and how security aligns with your priorities and objectives. Each security plan will be different, but each one needs to articulate the organization's security requirements and mitigation strategies. Now, I'm not here to talk about the inquiry into the Manchester Arena bombing. Within time, a full report will be available for us to read and learn from. However, to anyone reading the articles online, it is plain to see that there was a definite lack of communication and coordination between the different security actors. Excuse me while I... With a comprehensive security plan in place that everyone is aware of and bought into, the chances of a robust, more effective response to a critical incident like a terror attack will be greatly enhanced. In a world of litigation, it is also a way of showing accountability. If a role or responsibility has been accepted and then neglected, it is far easier for organizations to prove their innocence and for the law to apportion blame. Let's not forget that we're living in a blame culture where the real or even perceived idea of guilt can have a disastrous effect on an organization's reputation. That is where the 7 exercises come in. They are written specifically to ensure that, that as you work your way through the course, you start to develop a better understanding of how your security relates to your organization. You develop answers that can be directly inserted into the security plan. You begin to understand your organization's security requirements. And by the end of the course, you should have the makings of a bespoke security plan. The base on which the security plan is built is the understanding of your operational environment. For only when you know what can affect you either from a positive or negative standpoint can we start to grasp the entirety of your security context. The operational environment and the security context within has different layers. For the sake of security, these can be identified as the macro level, a countrywide basis, meso level, regional, city or town, and the micro level, which will directly impact on your organization. There are some useful tools out there that allow you to record and analyze, and I'm sure most of you will be aware of SWOT and PESTLE analysis. Both are good at identifying the major uncontrollable external forces at the macro and meso level, such as economic, demographic, technological, cultural, legal, political, that type of thing. All of which, of course, influence and have an impact on an organization's decision making. But in order to establish the micro context, or in other words, the specific threats to you because of where you are, who you are, and what you do, I have designed a specific process. It's like a tool. It's split into 2 groups that have a total of 9 different headings. You can remember them, I do, by the acronyms of AVPO and TAX. You work through a process, building up the relevant information until at the end you have a comprehensive understanding of the threats that your organization faces due to its geographical location and operational activities. I want to stress that this process is unique to my company, and as such, I've copyrighted it. It is a simple but effective process that allows for the specific threats to be identified. With the threats identified, we can then flesh out the rest of the plan. Any questions? Have we got any questions coming in? Let me just have a little sip of water. I've not talked so much for ages. Oh, thank you. Right. Martin, what are the main differences between your course and ACT? Great question. There are a lot of similarities between my course and ACT. As I said, I've mentioned that I've kept the same sort of terminology. And ACT is a great starting point. What you've got to realize is with my course, it's over 6 hours in length. And therefore, during that time, I can go into the subject in a lot more depth, in a lot more, and explain a lot more of the situation and the context that we're in. So I would say that my course, opposed to the ACT course, is there's a lot more involved in it. Okay, right, another one? No, I will carry on anyway. So let's look at vulnerability. Both vulnerability and risk assessments will definitely be a requirement under the new Protect Duty legislation. Vulnerability is defined as any weakness that can be exploited by an aggressor in order to harm the thing that you're trying to protect. But what is it that you're trying to protect? There will be many assets that belong to your organization, all of which will need protecting in some way, shape, or form. It could be a big list. So the best way to get started is to prioritize. Generally, the things or assets you will need protecting will come under the following headings: physical assets, buildings, people, staff, visitors, information, electronic and paper, procedures, supply chains, etc. Reputation. And reputation is a far less tangible element, but if damaged, and I've mentioned, can have a major effect on your organization. Look at Pan Am, the airliner, the airline company. After Lockerbie, it just went out of business. The asset of the top of your list should always be people, staff, visitors, customers, contractors, and the general public. We can't replace those. We can replace everything else, but we can't replace people. Further down the list will appear the assets that are specific to your organization and that are prioritized due to your operational requirements. With the list complete, the best way for you to identify if any of them are vulnerable is to conduct a vulnerability assessment. Within a counter-terrorism context, the objective of a vulnerability assessment is used to identify weaknesses or gaps within your existing physical security measures. What you must continually ask yourself is that in order for a terrorist or criminal to carry out an attack, be it with an edged weapon, vehicle as a weapon, or plant an IED, for example, are the security systems that you have in place sufficient? Thanks, Luke. Are they sufficient to deter, detect, or delay? In order to achieve this, your security measures have to be robust. Nightclubs have been targeted by terrorists and are often locations where stabbings can take place. If you were to install a metal detector that can pick up edged weapons, for example, and there are devices out there like this, this would go a long way to ensuring that the people you are protecting are far less vulnerable to an edged weapon attack. In order for you to better understand your organizational weaknesses or vulnerabilities, the course provides information that will enable you to identify vulnerabilities using 3 categories: minor weakness, a weakness, or a major weakness. There is also an exercise on the methods used by terrorists to identify vulnerabilities during the target selection phase. We'll take another question. Julie, do you have to do the course all in one go? No. The 6 modules there, they all have their own videos, and they have their portion of the workbook, and you can start and stop and go back as long as you like, and you get 6 months to be able to reference it and go back and forth. So no, you don't have to do it all in one go. Do it at a time scale, a timeline to suit you. Okay, let's have a look at the risk assessment. There are 2 that we cover in the course: the overall risk assessment and the dynamic risk assessment. The risk assessment is an output of the security management process and is crucial, if not the most important aspect of any security study, as it is with the accurate and comprehensive study and assessment of the risk that reduction measures or risk mitigation can be determined. The objective of a risk assessment is to identify and assess the potential threats, vulnerabilities, and risks to which the location and assessment is exposed to, and the impact on its primary services and operations. The risk assessment also establishes the basis and rationale for mitigation or reduction measures to be planned, designed, and implemented in order to protect the lives of people and to reduce the damage to an organization's other assets. The risk assessment is considered the linchpin of the security risk management process. It's important, recognized by often a legal requirement. I am amazed that so many get the risk assessment wrong or just pay it lip service. I've seen assessments that have included information on trips and falls, working at height, etc., but there is no sign of anything to do with a terror attack. I'm sure through the legislation, the new legislation, UK Protect Duty, that this lack of documentation will have to cease. But no worry, as we discuss risk extensively during the course. After we have calculated the risk, we have to put in place measures of risk reduction. Now, it must be remembered that incidents that are identified by security risks are intentional. The individual or group has intent to rob, hurt, or disrupt your organization in a harmful way. You can become a direct or indirect target, something else that is discussed during the course. But remember, if someone is committed on doing a harmful act to you, it is very difficult to stop them. What we can do is use mitigation to lower the impact. Risk reduction and mitigation is the plan of specific measures your organization will take following the completion of a risk assessment. Your mitigation needs to focus on the specific threats that you identified in your security context, the assets that you're trying to protect, and how vulnerable the assets are to the different attack methodologies and capabilities of the various actors. All this information is provided by yourself as you work through the various exercises. We also conduct an exercise on the current terrorist attack methods and history in order for you to establish the vulnerability also. I also give you mitigation measures based on my empirical experience and the best practice on what you should do during the various terror attacks, terror scenarios. Got another question. Colin, I'm not a security manager. I don't write plans. Is it still worth me doing the course? Absolutely. There's a lot of information out there that I'm sure that you can use as an individual. There's, as I just mentioned it there, I give my empirical experience on how best to defend yourself in an explosion, for example. Now, explosions normally come in, well, they can come in singular events, but they can also come in multiple explosions. The follow-up explosion was a really good, was a device that was used by the IRA to great extent. And I give scenarios and I give courses of actions that people can actually take to mitigate the risk of being caught up in a secondary explosion, for example. So yeah, I mean, it's great that you're taking an interest and you're here this evening. And no, because you're a security manager, fine. But at the end of the day, this is all useful information on keeping yourself and the loved ones and the loved ones that you have safe around you. So yeah, it's very worthwhile. We're going to go back to the risk assessment. I don't want to spend too long on this, but we're now going to go on from the normal risk assessment. A risk assessment is prepared in advance and is used to utilize and analyze identified risks, which are recorded and monitored on an ongoing basis. But you need something a bit more flexible when entering a new setting or when the setting you are in changes for the worst. The tool used in that case is a dynamic risk assessment. Dynamic risk assessment is the process of continually observing and analysing risks and hazards in a changing or high risk environment. It's used extensively by the fire service and the police and the other various security services. It allows you to quickly identify new risks and remove or reduce them. In undertaking a dynamic risk assessment, it doesn't mean you need to follow the formal risk assessment process of writing everything down. Formal risk assessments are proactive. Dynamic risk assessments, on the other hand, are reactive. They fill in any gaps that the risk assessment couldn't predict. In order to utilize the dynamic risk assessment as a process, the course gives an example of what you do when first entering an unknown location. A hotel is used for this exercise, with a list of actions that could be carried out when entering being highlighted. You should always carry out a dynamic risk assessment before entering any new location or situation, and continue to constantly assess the risks and hazards in case the circumstances change. Any more questions? No? Okay, we'll crack on. We're nearly there, guys, nearly there. When I started my degree, coming up to 50 minutes. I hope I haven't bored you to death. When I started my degree in security and risk management, my professor explained that the subject was not an exact science. It wasn't like maths or physics, where there would always be a definitive answer. However, there are processes that we follow in risk management that, if obeyed, should give a desired outcome. What my intention has been when I designed the course was that it should follow a risk management model to give you that desirable outcome. The course has been in the making, I suppose, since 2005, when I entered first of all into the security industry, and it's been in development for the last 16 years. I began to put it all together in July of last year, and it has taken many, many man-hours to complete. It's over 6 hours of intensive information that will enhance your security. The 6 modules, the workbook, the security plan, all my knowledge comes in at a special price this evening of under £100. In fact, it's £97 plus VAT. If you take the course, you also get the chance to access me on a consultancy basis for a reduced cost of £47 plus VAT per half hour, as the normal price being £97. What the course will do will give you peace of mind that you have taken steps to protect those that you're responsible for, and puts you on the path to becoming compliant with the law when protect duty comes online. The course is available in the chat. There's links in the chat. Make sure that you sign up and receive our newsletter. The first newsletter will be out in May. And yeah, thank you for attending this evening. We'll have a Q&A session, so please let's move on and get some questions.
What is the total cost of the course?
With the total cost of the course with VAT, I believe, is £116, £115, £116. And as I said, that's a lot of knowledge condensed into that. 16 years, 2 degrees, a lot of explosions and bombs. Nothing, no more questions yet.
Did you say the course is accredited by Highfield?
No, it's not accredited by Highfields. It's part of the Security Institute's approved training program. So if you're a member of the Security Institute, you get CPD points once you've completed the course. And the reason I went with the Security Institute, I'm a member of the Security Institute myself. It's a brilliant organization, and they've got a lot of things in place for the actual development of security professionals. course, you've got the books there as well that you can, if you feel like a ripping yarn, daring do, as they say. Can you put the questions up on the screen there, Luke? If we have any.
Yeah, no, there's no more questions.
Okay, well, yeah, we've just got one coming in. Yeah.
No, I think you're just saying thank you, very informative.
Yeah, is the course academically accredited? It's not academically accredited, as I mentioned. It's through the Security Institute, and I would seriously consider you, if you are a security professional, having a look into the Security Institute for your forward development. And we've got a message from Figan. Excellent course, and totally worth the money. Thank you, Figan. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I didn't pay her to say that, by the way. No, that's great. And the thing is as well, is that we'll have a forum. Once you've done the course, you'll have access to a forum. So if you want to actually put questions in there, we can answer that as we go forward. And then you become part of the Pendry Risk Management's alumni. As I said, you'll have access to me, and I'm sure that you'll be able to build a network by being part and associated with our organization. Okay, so wonderful. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Great to be amongst like-minded people. And remember, just stay safe out there. One thing I always say to my people in high-threat environments, if it doesn't look right, it's because it's not right. Good evening.